Hey y'all, good morning and welcome to Daddy's Right Here Live. I'm your host as always, Sabir Alim. Hey man, listen, I have had quite a morning. Yeah, you see I'm donning that Philadelphia Eagles hat. Yeah, the champions. We play today. Go Eagles, right? So, I haven't had any sleep. I probably closed my eyes for about 20 minutes this morning. I was up all day yesterday from about 4:30 a.m. Until right now. Trying to get this film out of post-production, laying down a new soundtrack, because the soundtrack that's on the one that you have seen, if you saw it, is not the original soundtrack. So I've been laying down the new soundtrack, going through all the sound, making all the changes with the EQ, and yeah, it's a process, man. And then I have to go back in and I have to adjust the audio, clean up the audio on the voice tracks. So it takes time. So, go downstairs, put on the pot of coffee, bam! No cream, no milk, nothing. I can't have coffee with no cream. I'm sorry. So I had to jump in the shower, throw some gear on, run around up the street to Walmart to get me some cream. So I come back, coffee's ready to go, pour the cream in. Man, this stuff rises to the top and separates. It's no good. And it's new. Carnation has this new condensed milk that's almond milk. I said, wow, I got to have that because I like the almond flavor in coffee. So, needless to say, I'm drinking black coffee this morning because I need it. But anywho, so my year started off great this year. I'll share the news with you as soon as everything is confirmed and the ink is on the paper. But my year started off with more than a bang, man. I just, listen, I'm so grateful for another day above ground, first and foremost. But I'm grateful, man, for the path that I have taken in my life. You know, this move to Florida 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, right, was something that I planned for years. Anybody who knows me will tell you that I planned for years to move and retire in Florida. So I haven't retired yet, but I've been here, man, and Florida has treated me so good. I mean, right from the door, man, I was treated so good. The first employer who I came down here with as a contractor, you know, within the Florida Department of Corrections, gave us a house to live in, right? Had a house to live in, and for about 6 months before I had to pay any rent. Then I transferred to Central Florida because I was living in, excuse me, Panama City, and I transferred to another prison in Ocala, and then I had the blessing to land a job with the Florida Department of Corrections, and that in itself, man, has been quite a treat, a good learning experience for me to understand Florida corrections, because for those of you who do know me, I've worked as a contractor with Pennsylvania Department of Corrections for many years. And so something else has happened since then. Yeah, something big, man. Listen, I'll share it with you as soon as everything is confirmed, so I don't want to let the cat out the bag. But no sleep. Sometimes you don't get any sleep, man. When you're on the grind and you're trying to make things happen, you know, you can't make things happen, man, laying in the bed, sitting on your hands, sitting in front of the television, you know, hanging out with the friends, the homies. You can't make things happen that way unless those people who you're hanging out with are going in the same direction as you. They have to be going in the same direction. They have to be. Anybody who's in your circle, if you are planning success comes with a lot of sacrifice, a lot of commitment, a lot of sleepless nights. I remember when I was pursuing my master's degree, right, doing those papers, those rewrites, all that research, you know, trying to, you know, get that piece of paper. And you know, nights, no sleep, you know. So throughout my career, because I'm a career person, I'm not a job seeker, I'm a career person. So I've been doing this for almost 25 years, and I've learned to not chase the paper, chase the damn tree, right? Because the money is made from paper, the tree, right? So I chase the tree, man. And you know, I have a bird's eye view. Yeah, I'm not quite there, but I have a bird's eye view. That's been my whole mission, man. You know, I stay consistent with that. I just can't say enough, man, about the blessings that I receive, you know, on a daily basis. And again, waking up is one of them. So last week, we were talking about the manhood of boy. And the reason why I came up with that was because, you know, boys are raised much differently than girls. And we're raised in a capacity of manhood right from the door. You know, as toddlers, we're told to, like, you know, stop crying, get up. Let's brush it off and keep on walking. You know, we're taught to not express our emotions. You know, we're taught to stuff everything. So we walk around with these concrete bunkers inside of us storing all of our emotions, and we only, you know, seem to have the capacity, when groomed in that way, to just express two emotions. One is anger, and the other is rage. Yeah. So anything that happens for us that may put a smile on our face, that may give us some level of satisfaction, right? We're groomed to not enjoy it. That it's more of an achievement, you know, an accomplishment. Even in terms of how we interact with girls, women, right? We want to conquer them, right? Beat on our chests after we sleep with them, and, you know, think that we have accomplished something, right? It takes, but it takes maturity, and it takes an emotional intelligence to rise above that conditioning. But it doesn't come easy, man. It comes with a lot of pain, you know, and a lot of suffering. And there are a lot of males out there today who are not emotionally intelligent, who are suffering in silence. They are, right? And for a long time, you know, I was one of those, until I started looking at life through a different lens. I started, you know, making some different decisions, and started being responsible. And being responsible, man, sometimes comes with a lot of heartache and pain. But you have to rise above where you are. No matter where you think you are in life, there's another level. There's another level. Always another level. I always remain teachable. Always. And the gifts that I have, I share with others. People took me under their wing and taught me things, you know, guided me, and I followed that direction, and I continue to follow that direction. And as a result of me continuing to follow that direction, as a result of me continuing to mature as a man, I continue to elevate. I elevate myself, I elevate others, and the Creator does the rest. But in terms of emotional intelligence for boys, that's something that we really need to do a lot of work on. A lot of work. When we see our young males out in the streets today, watch their swagger. Watch how they conduct themselves around one another. Even those who they're close to, as far as other males. Watch how they interact in the household with their parents, their siblings. Just watch. And you'll see the lack of emotional intelligence. I told you there's only two expressions: anger and rage. And when that rage is released, it's released upon everybody they come into contact with. And it becomes a stigma of the environment. And what I mean by a stigma, I mean that when we look at profiling, and I'm talking specifically about black males in this moment, when we look at the stigma attached to black males, it has more to do with the lack of emotional intelligence than the environment itself. You know, oftentimes I've been to the nonviolent rallies and things of that nature, and the different conferences and workshops that people offer. And one of the things that continues to happen is it continues to get skimmed over. Nobody talks about the conditioning of male. Nobody has that conversation. What's wrong with them? These kids today, they're this and they're that, but it all goes back to us. It's a cycle. It's a cycle that we continue to pass on after generation after generation after generation. And we have to take responsibility for that. We have to. This is a must. This is not a would, should. This is a must. And it falls on both parents. Because oftentimes what happens is the male parent is the primary director. The primary director of the male's intelligence. So the only intelligence that seems to be focused on with the male parent is taking it on the chin, keep it moving, stop whining. Then oftentimes what happens is the female parent, the mother, right, tells the child to be careful. So dad will say climb higher on the ladder, mom will say be careful. Right? Now, what does it have to do with emotional intelligence? Well, if the child gets halfway up the ladder and has a fear of height and doesn't want to go any further, what happens? What's the first thing that the male parent says? Get up that ladder, man. Stop being a girl. Go ahead and get up there. Mom is saying, come on down. You don't have to go up that ladder. Unless it's a fire or something, then you gotta go. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is, when you look at emotional intelligence, the male child has within their mind, right, I gotta do this no matter what. It's like a John Q moment. John was at the hospital, a situation was happening with his child, and John was on the phone talking to his wife. Y'all remember John Q? And his wife said, John, do something. John didn't know what to do. John did something. That's a clear display of emotional intelligence. He was there for his son. I believe it was his son. In the hospital. He cared. He loved his son. He'd do anything for his son. But what he reached back for, right, was something that we're all groomed and accustomed to doing. And it's also part of fight or flight, which is a whole nother discussion. But he went back to that. Make it happen. I'm going to take this one on the chin. If it means I'm going to go to prison, I'm going to go to prison. But I'm going to do this. So, when we were talking last week, one of the things that I was talking about was how little boys go through a lot of trauma early on. I didn't put it in those words. I'm putting it in those words now. But what I was talking about was the trauma that little boys go through early on, because they are taught, we are taught to suppress all of that. Suppress all of that. And then we start hearing terms like, stop acting like a little sissy. Stop being a chump. Stop acting like a punk. And some other superlatives that I care not to use on the show. But that child then becomes angry. Not understanding that it's anger. The parents don't understand that the child is becoming angry until they see the behaviors presented within the household, presented within school. The child becomes aggressive. See, when you force anyone, not just a boy, to suppress their emotions, it causes anger. Because I can't get it out of me. I got to keep stuffing it. I don't have an outlet for it. There's no outlet for it. Because if I show it, I'm wrong. And I'll be beat for it. I'll be punished for it. I'll be chastised for it. I'll be teased by my peers. So I hide it from everybody. I hide it from my parents, my caretakers. I hide it from my peers. So I'm more apt to do negative things, not necessarily intentionally, but subconsciously. Subconsciously, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And that's what we see today. That's exactly what we see today. Rage. Guns. Knives. Just outright raw violence. But that is a result of not just environmental conditions, not just socioeconomic statuses. It's a result of what males are being fed. Yeah. Yeah. What males are being fed. So, when we start looking at the elements of emotional intelligence, you have to look at the same thing that girls have. Right? The same things girls are given. The same things that girls have within themselves, like the boys do. We have to look at all those things that are nurtured within them. The natural things. Being loving, caring, empathetic, sympathetic, understanding. Those kind of things. We have to start nurturing those things in our males. But it starts right from them being toddlers, right from them being infants. Hold them, hug them, kiss them. I was looking at a post by, I think it was D.L. Hughley, giving his son a kiss. And talking about how, as old as his son is, that he still continues to greet his son with a kiss. I've seen P. Diddy, Puffy. I've seen him embrace his son in the same capacity. It's frightening for males to do this, and you really have to all understand this. It is frightening to show that level of expression between males. And then we got all these people who are homophobic. It only adds to it. It only adds to it. But when you look at your child and you watch their behaviors, you'll see where they're lacking. And the question then becomes, so how can you start giving your boys, your men, be it them young men or adults, how do you begin to give them something that they didn't have before, or maybe you didn't have before? How do you give something that you don't have as a male to your son? It begins with you. It begins with you. Like everything else about a child, it begins and ends with us as the parents. I just had girls. I had 3 girls, 3 beautiful girls. So I haven't had the pleasure of raising a boy. But at one point in time in my life, newsflash, I was a boy. And I know what I didn't get. And this is not about blaming anyone. This is about how do we end the cycle so our boys can be trusting, honest, loving, caring, and understanding, especially to themselves, but also to everybody else around them. And let's not leave out romantic relationships, because intimacy is another thing that gets impacted when a male does not have appropriate emotional intelligence. So in my haste, I could not find the same article that I went to last week. But we're still on topic because I found another article which also deals with emotional intelligence. So let me see if I can get this here. Here we go. All right. So this is on the Big EQ campaign.org website. And the title of the article is Boyhood, Manhood, and Emotional Intelligence. Why do we shortchange our boys? And this article was from December 26th. I don't see the author's name. I do not. So, again, it's on the Big EQ campaign.org website. Alright, so, and the title says it all. Why do we shortchange our boys? Why? We shortchange them. I was shortchanged. So let's just go to the article. Toxic masculinity is a trending topic that's made it to the front page of the news too many times this year. And for good reason. Manhood in society has traditionally meant being stoic and straight-faced. Emotions might as well not exist if you're a male. Boys are taught these social norms from the very first months of their lives. And by the time they reach young adulthood, it's ingrained into them that emotionality is unacceptable. That boys don't cry. This is toxic masculinity. And it has untold negative psychological and social effects on men and boys. How can we prepare our boys for life in a world where their emotional experiences mark them as less worthy of manhood? You feel me here? When you just listen to what it just said. To live life in a world where their emotional experiences mark them as less worthy of manhood. Marinate on that for a minute. That's all we hear. Over and over and over again. Manhood. I'm 4 years old. I'm 10 years old. What the hell happened to boyhood? Can I be a boy? Teach me how to be a boy. Let me be a boy. Because I'm going to be a boy, naturally. The idea here is to teach me how to be a good person. Manhood is going to come. Manhood is going to come. Manhood is not predicated on an age. And oftentimes we get that confused. Oh, you're 18 now, you're grown. You're 21 now, you're grown. You're an adult. Per who? Per what? If we focus on teaching boys to be good people, that encompasses all that exists within us already. Already. So you're not teaching me manhood. Think about it for a minute. You're not teaching me manhood. You're teaching me some idealistic, not idealistic, idealistic approach to societal so-called norms. And I say idea because it's what you think. Because it's from the perspective of your own childhood. It's from the perspective of what those around you have given you. And idealistic, ideal is that which is written. And that's found in your religious doctrine. That's found in your psychological and psychiatric stages of development for the human being. which comes from the same doctrine because it's science. Science and religion are all together. They're all together. Right? So when you understand science, the science of the human being, and you read whatever your chosen doctrine is or are, you begin to see the reality of life. And when you see the reality of life, then you see your own reality. And that's a difficult thing to swallow. Because that's what that internal struggle is. That's what that internal struggle is, that jihad. That's what jihad is. It's the struggle within. It's not the struggle without. It's the struggle with doing right, being right, and staying in alignment. And because we are caused by others to deviate from the natural order of self, we run into all these self complications based on poor self-concept, based on poor self-perception, and so on and so forth. It all goes back to self. So when I'm trying to be a man, I'm trying to be who it is that you and society have deemed as being manhood. Males are taught that their penises are their manhood. Therefore, they run around town squirting seed everywhere they possibly can, and then don't take responsibility because of conditioning. Because believing that that's my manhood. What is manhood? Is it a group? Is it fashionable? Something that we all can say that this is manhood? What are your rites of passage to come to that conclusion? Think about it for a minute. Who told you that's manhood? Back to the article. It's quite simple. The problem with boys and EQ is that boys aren't taught to develop their EQ in the first place. Toxic masculinity as a social norm means that girls are encouraged to let it out and boys are encouraged to keep a straight face. You better not cry. Oh, you better not cry. Don't you cry. You better not cry. And then, bam! As soon as I start crying, you hit me. And tell me to stop crying. While you're hitting me, you're telling me to stop crying. This is where the rage begins to be reinforced. Yeah. Because it's not just a physical hit that males become accustomed to and become desensitized by, but it's also the emotional hits that we take. Yeah. Yeah. Fear, abandonment, shame, guilt, embarrassment. And Lord knows we better not have a little wee-wee, because that's only going to add to it, right? Because when I did the previous shows on sexuality, and I was talking about how boys see themselves and how boys begin to develop a self-concept based on a comparison to others, and how they see other little boys, how they see their bodies, their body shapes, and all those things like that. So now, this is where the rage begins to build. This is where the rage begins to build. Because I can't feel those things. I feel them, but I can't feel those things because I'm taught not to. Hold it in. Don't you tell her you love her. No, don't you do that. You'll get sucked in. You'll get sucked dry. You'll look weak. Woman don't want no weak ass behind boy and no weak behind man. Stay strong. Yeah, stay strong. If you do that, this is where rage comes in. This is why I say there's only two emotions that males are conditioned to express: anger and rage. And they're related. They're cousins. Because everything that I come into contact with that hits a nerve, that triggers an emotion within me, the me, see this, and there's a difference here. The me, which is the behavioral stuff, right, deals with it aggressively, arrogantly, cockily. That toxicity is coming out. It's toxic because it spreads and it causes pain and suffering and hurt upon others. I'm not trying to do that, but I'll justify when I do it by blaming something, even if it's you, even if it's the system. I'll find something to blame it on, because I don't know with certainty what the core problem is. And having an absent father especially adds to that. When you go back, I'm going back to your article. When you're told in daycare and preschool that you shouldn't cry, it's hard to develop emotional intelligence at all. How do you learn a skill without practicing it? Now remember, here I am at home, and I'm having my caretakers tell me, and my siblings, and my friends, and society telling me not to cry. Now here I'm in a learning environment. An environment where I should be learning academic kind of things and also behavioral things, how to be mannerly, you know, and sit up in class, which I should be getting at home too, but it's restated again in the classroom environment, which has made the educators have such a difficult time, because a lot of kids are not getting this at home either, right? A lot of kids. Let's be real here, because you know we're working these 9 to 5s, and then we're working the 6 to 12s, and we're doing all these things, and we're losing sight of the development, right, that we're responsible for of the child, and just have an expectation that they're going to do it, and you don't set the example yourself for doing those things yourself, but you want me to do it because it's a do as I say, not as I do mindset of so many caretakers, that you really don't know what's happening here, but it's being reinforced in school. I can't differentiate between what you're telling me and what I'm hearing again from another adult, another parent, another village leader. I can't differentiate between who's right and who's wrong. I only know that I'm hearing from both. Therefore, I begin to adapt, and I begin to listen to both. And because you tell me that I need to respect adults and what it is an adult is saying, and I'm hearing the same thing from this other adult in this learning environment. So it's all being reinforced. It's all being reinforced. And then when I see other little boys in the daycare center crying, what am I thinking about them? Well, he can cry. When he cried, you went over there and picked him up. When I cried, you tell me to shut up. I'm yours. I'm your blood. I'm your seed. But you went and picked him up. Why is that? Why is that? So the mindset of the adult, the caretaker, is that, well, I'm teaching you to not be that way. I'm teaching you not to do that. I'm teaching you not to cry. To learn how to handle your business. And that's not the way to do it, by showing emotions. But that child over there who you just picked up, right? Oh, he's lacking in that, so I'm going to go hug him because he don't know no better. His mama don't know no better. His daddy don't know no better. just a child. Come on. Really? Back to the article. In reality, it starts even earlier than daycare, because today's parents were raised in the same environment of toxic masculinity. It's easy to slip into the same behavior patterns despite knowing better. Despite knowing better. Problematic behaviors can be as simple and benign as shushing your crying son instead of letting him cry it out. But the end result is the same, even if your intent is good. It hampers this emotional development. If you're a parent to a boy, or if you have a male child in your life at all, it's vital to educate yourself about boyhood and emotional intelligence now, so you can make changes early while it still counts. Now the article says while it still counts, and it's saying in the capacity of boys, not men. Because once the boy enters into adulthood, it's a lot of work to be done. It's a lot of work to be done. And mommy and daddy ain't doing the work for you. Your woman ain't doing the work for you. Well, some cases it is, but it just makes for trying times in any relationship. But that's your responsibility as an adult. That means that you have to enter into counseling or something that's going to help you. You have to become more self-aware. You have to begin to mature. But as a boy, we have the ability right now to save our boys. We have that ability. But as it says here, if you're a parent to a boy, or if you have a male child in your life at all, it's vital. Vital. Water is vital to our continued existence. Water is vital. To educate yourself about boyhood, there's two parts. Educate yourself about boyhood is the first part. What is boyhood? How do you teach a male boyhood? Are those crickets? You hear them too? That's part of the problem. The next part of that is an emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? Well, if you're not connected to your own emotions, if you suppress your own emotions, right, how can you possibly know what emotional intelligence is? How many people seek to be emotionally intelligent? Excuse me. How many? Are you emotionally intelligent? So let's go on down into the article so we can help. I'm going to give you help on developing a boy's emotional intelligence. If you have an older boy, it can be a struggle just to get him to open up when you suspect that something is wrong. It's hard for boys to develop the emotional capacity needed to parse their own emotions and recognize when it's time to open up. And instead of saying I had a bad day and elaborating with details, it's easy for him to say that his day was fine and let the conversation drop. I'm good. I'm alright. I'm fine. My day was fine. What does fine mean? Sugar is fine. Women are fine. The sand is fine. Your hair might be fine. How is a day fine? What does that mean? You need to ask that question. When you get that response, am I, what does I mean? Is that spelled A-I-G-H-T? Or is it spelled I-I-T-E? What does that mean? I often tell counselors when they when they're documenting in a psychosocial assessment, they ask the question, so how was the relationship with your mother? They put good. Now this is what the clinician writes, good. What does that mean? What does good mean? Are we having sex together? Are we doing drugs together? Are we in some kind of illegal business together? What does good mean? Right? Because again, when you ask that question after that statement, they have to think about what good means. And the first response you're going to get is, why are you asking me all these questions? Here comes the aggression. Here comes the anger. And if it goes on any longer, you'll see the rage. This is why it says here, you have a chance. Why you have a chance while they're boys? Have this conversation. Have this conversation. What does good mean? Well, I love my mother. I love my father. What does love mean? What does that mean? Explain to me when you say I love my mother. What does that mean? I love my mother. Well, she carried me for 9 months. Okay, we know that. She's your mother. Tell me something I don't know. She does this for me. She does that for me. You know, again, this is emotional stuff. This is an emotional conversation. Because males go here first. Right up into the pterodome, I call it. It's an intellectual response. Good is an intellectual response. When you probe and you ask about good, fine. When you ask those questions, you have to always be able to dig a little deeper. So what does good mean to you? What does love mean to you? Back to the article. You can start by setting aside regular time every day to expand his emotional capacity. It doesn't require in-depth social exercises or homework on his part. It can be as simple as sitting down together at dinner and discussing what happened at school today. Something simple. Establishing a routine for talking about your feelings makes emotional discussions feel cathartic rather than stress-inducing. Right? Because I just gave you an example. That's stressful. For me to have to tell you what good means, to tell you what fine means, to tell you what I means, is all right in the dictionary. A-L-R-I-G-H-T. Is it in the dictionary? What does it mean? Is okay in the dictionary? There's okay, the letters O and K, and then there's O-K-A-Y. Are those words in the dictionary? Look them up. Have them look up words. Right? And again, it talks about here, they don't have to do any in-depth social exercises or homework. Right? But in order for you to come to understand some things, you do have to do some research. You do have to learn how to look things up. I mean, a dictionary is like the best tool to have, because it teaches you the use of words. It teaches you the definition of words. That's what it does. So, when you have these conversations, make it fun. You don't have to, so what does good mean? No. So when you say good, little Johnny, what does that mean? I don't know. And that same boy response that you get is the same man response you're going to get. I don't know. I mean, it's good. You know what good means? Oh, now you playing me. Now you acting like you better than me. Now we going into all this now, right? again, the defense mechanism kicks right in. Look at the behavior that you see in men, and you'll see where it comes from. All of our behaviors today as adults have been carried from our childhood. Whether you can remember what happened or not is not the point. The point is, who you are today is who you were then. Only thing different is you've aged. That's all. Those things don't go away. Trauma doesn't go away. Memories don't go away. They don't go away. As an adult, you should be acting differently. As an adult, you should be maturing. It doesn't go away. So when you see behaviors presented by yourself, no matter what the behavior is, why do you like chocolate ice cream so much? Why do you like Dorney Park so much, the rides and all those things? Why do you like those things so much? Why do you like the outdoors so much? And it doesn't necessarily mean that if you like the outdoors a lot that you know, your family took you out camping and all those things. It may be something that you always wanted to do as a child. That you always wanted to do, that you saw television. You heard about it from your friends. You saw it in pictures. You know, you always, oh, I'd love to go camping, and never went. But it still stems from childhood experience. And an experience is not only something that has happened, but something that you strongly desire to happen. Something that you strongly desire to happen. But maybe you were told you can't go. Oh, I can't afford no camping trip. You got to get a sleeping bag. You got to get a tent and all this other stuff. And I know. You be out there in the woods. I don't know what's going to happen to you out there in the woods. Who are these people that are going? They carrying guns? Mom, Dad, it's camping. It's campfires, roasting, toasting marshmallows and hot dogs on a stick, sitting around telling campfire stories, exploring the outdoors, being in alignment with the creation because I am part of that. Oh, now you some smart-ass kid now. You know, it's a whole cycle, man. It goes back and forth because when a child says something back to you and it hits an emotional nerve, then you're reacting to that. When you react to that, the child reacts back. And the child reacts back based on a whole different worldview. A whole different worldview. So it doesn't have to be a knockout, drag down conversation. Just talk. Let's talk. And, you know, something as simple as, well, when I say something is good, because I say it a lot too, son. I say it a lot too. I say, I'm good. You know, somebody called me and asked me how I'm doing. I say, good. What does good mean? Well, I got a roof over my head. There's food in the fridge. The air conditioning is working. The heat works. I got clothes to put on. I got a television. I have a family. And all those things come along with descriptions. Right? Because somebody doesn't have a TV. Because somebody doesn't have both of their parents actively involved. And the list goes on and on and on. But they're all emotional. There's an emotional attachment to all those things. You know, for those of us who enjoy television, just think what happens when the cable goes out. What do? Well, most of us now grab our phones and we'll put on Netflix or something like that. But just think for a minute if those things weren't there. Before television, what did people do? They had conversations. Conversations often bring forth emotions. When you have a strong feeling about a particular thing, what happens? Emotions. You get sad, you get happy. And sometimes you get happy while the activity is happening, be it a conversation or dining, whatever it is. But then, excuse me, after you come away from it, it's depressing. And that adds on to the strife that you already experience on a daily basis. You know, for me, moving to Florida was a matter of, like, I like vacations. I like going on the beach. I can't swim a lick, but I like going down to the beach, sitting on the beach, putting my feet in the water. I like going fishing. I like all those things. I like being able to be close to the port, so when I want to giddy up, I can just drive on down to the port and keep it moving. Don't have to worry about airfare, things of that nature, right? That's what I want. That's what I enjoy, right? But when you can't do those kind of things, for whatever reason, like, what happens? What happens? So it's a lot of difficulty that goes on. So my point on that was that, like, I tell people, when you live like you're on vacation, you never have to worry about going on vacation. You never have to stress about going on vacation, because you live like you're on vacation. I can go to the beach every single day. Now, I got 2 different beaches to go to that are less than 15 minutes away. So I get off of work, I go to the park where there's a beach under the bridge, where there's nothing but water. There's a whole marina down there, and I go sit down there in the car, smoke a cigar, sit down, chill, you know, watch the wildlife, you know, the marine life, you know, watch people. But the serenity that water brings is just, it's a whole nother discussion about the relationship between water and the human being, because we're comprised of such. That's why we have to make sure we're always drinking it. But when you have the ability to do those things, right? And because you don't have the convenience like I do to go to a beach. I mean, Atlantic City is a car drive away, but how many people have cars that never go to Atlantic City unless they're going to a show, they're going down there to gamble? But there was a time when Atlantic City used to be the place to be, because they had the boardwalk, they had rides, they had food and all those good things, and it's changed a lot. But still, people have cars and won't even drive to those kind of places. See, you have the ability to do something. And it only costs for many of the places you go to is what? Parking. But if you find an off-street, lot place, you can park on the street and just walk to the beach, right? Unless you're worried about your car, the same car that you got up in the hood. You're worried about parking in another hood. And you use all these things to not do things for yourself that are important, that are necessary for you to have balance in your life. See, these are all the things that happen. These are all the things that only add to, right, an emotional deficiency. And because all these things are pent up within you, you want to go places, you want to do things, and then you keep giving yourself all kind of reasons why you don't. And then you put that upon the child. You put that upon the child. Back to the article. If you have a younger boy, start developing his emotional capacity now, before he develops habits that are detrimental to his emotional development. Make it a habit to read his body language. Yeah. Ask what's wrong, and actually listen to him, no matter how inconsequential or small the problem. Better yet, model the right behavior by taking the initiative to talk about what's bothering you. What's bothering you? When he sees that his adult role model is comfortable talking about emotions, it becomes easier for him to talk about his own feelings too. Yeah. 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 But again, it goes back to you. It goes back to you. See, we say a lot of things in our homes. We say a lot of things around our children, in the presence of our children. And we think that the children are not listening. Just because they don't get involved in the conversation, just because they're not part of the conversation, don't mean they're not watching and they're not listening and they're not learning from you. They learn from us. They see how we deal with life. They see how we deal with conflict and confrontation. They see how we problem solve. And that's where they learn it from. But then you have the audacity as the parent to say to the child, You need to get yourself together. You need to stop